Some snow showers across the Pennines again, but rain, sleet and hill snow gradually clearing its way towards the southeast as we go into Tuesday afternoon, with some brighter spells developing in the west. Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing the best of the sunshine, but continuing to stay cold and sunny for all of us on Wednesday, before further wet and windy weather arrives on Thursday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Headliners is just moments away, but first our top stories tonight. 1,500 properties in Cumbria are still without electricity after heavy snow caused power cuts. Electricity North West says that repairs are continuing following significant damage to the network, with engineers battling treacherous conditions. Weather warnings for snow and ice remain in place for many parts of the UK. Earlier, police confirmed that the body of a man had been found in a car in Nottingham. Well, it's been announced that the Foreign Secretary will travel to the United States next week to meet Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Lord Cameron will travel to Washington on December 6th as part of efforts to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. He'll also meet with Republican and Democrat members of Congress. A US warship has shot down a drone launched from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. The American military saying that there were 4 attacks against 3 commercial vessels in the southern Red Sea today. It's believed that one of those ships that was hit was a British-owned cargo vessel. Yemeni Houthis claimed that they struck Israeli targets. Israel's military says the ships had no connection to them. Commuters have faced a second day of travel chaos as train drivers continued 7 days of strikes. ASLEF union members have launched a series of walkouts in their dispute over pay. Great Northern, Thameslink and Avanti West Coast trains have seen cancellations. Chiltern Railways and West Midlands Railway services have also been affected. The suspect in the killing of a German tourist in central Paris pledged allegiance to Islamic State before attacking tourists. The French prosecutor says the 26-year-old made the comment in a video posted on social media. 2 other people, including a British tourist, were injured when they were attacked with a knife and a hammer near the Eiffel Tower. Previously, the suspect was sentenced to 4 years in prison for planning an attack in 2016. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Now, it's those headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, back from a very rare break. Hope you're well. I'll be taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour with the help of Paul Cox and the hindrance of Lewis Schaefer. There he is. I've used that before, but it's so good. Had to use it again. How are you both doing?
All the better for seeing you, Nick. Feels like
I've been off.
I have missed you.
What's been happening since I've not been here?
Lewis has become much more professional.
Really?
No.
No. And that's why it bothered me when you say a hindrance. I'm trying my best out here.
Yeah.
I look to camera like this. There's some empathetic and sympathetic.
The banter bit has got no less awkward in the time I've been off, and there's something mad happening in my ears. So let's, should we crack on and have a look at Monday's front pages then? So the Daily Mail has PM warns BBC over biggest licence fee increase for 40 years. The Eye has Tories losing voters to Farage amid anger over high immigration. The Guardian has Starmer, Labour will not turn on spending taps if it wins election. No one believes that. The Mirror, Thatcher backlash hits Starmer. The Metro, show us the money. And the Daily Star, Skate Britain, which is about the snow. Those were your headlines. All right, Paul, what is on the cover of the Daily Mail?
So, Nick, Daily Mail. PM warns BBC over biggest licence fee increase in 40 years. So Rishi Sunak has told the BBC to cut costs amid warnings ministers could intervene to limit this year's licence fee hike. Now, it's been fixed for nearly 4 years at £159, or let's call it £160, and that's because of all the things that have gone on in the world in that time. So, and basically the government have imposed that freeze on the BBC. But now, because of inflation, they're going to be rising it next year, I'm afraid to say, to £173 or £15 a month, which will be political kryptonite for some people, because there is a lot of questions over the value of the BBC, particularly now in amongst the culture war, where we're seeing the BBC quite divisive, not as neutral as they'd like us to believe, and they seem to be coming down on some sides of the argument or not committing to other sides of the argument, which is putting a question in some fee payers' minds, I would say, Nick.
Yeah, I feel bad for the BBC in some ways. It's very difficult in these incredibly polarised times. We almost have two parallel cultures, but they have also failed. I mean, they've been so obviously anti-Israel. They've been so woke in their arts programming, and they've just, they've failed to be neutral. It would be hard to be neutral right now, but they've not done a great job. And now we see Newsnight's getting cut, its funding. That's because Headliners is destroying it.
That's a little-known fact in industry. I mean, we know it in industry, and there's massive noise in industry about what Headliners has done to Newsnight.
I was joking. That's not really. That's not the real reason.
Yeah, but I wanted to create.
You went with it. Yeah,
I wanted to create.
And I had to clarify so we don't get sued. Lewis, is it the centralisation of everything and the death of something?
Yeah, well, it's what happens when it was centralised at one time, and it's becoming decentralised. And this is what happens: is that people used to have to watch the BBC. There was one channel, and it was set up to be balanced, to be whatever those words that they use when there are two political parties. But it's not that there are two political parties now. There are people who support Britain, and then there's Team World, and the BBC has been co-opted by Team World, and the GB News people, they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay for the BBC, which is just state propaganda. And so eventually, something's got to give. I don't know what's got to give. It's either us or them.
There was a time, of course, Nick and I would remember this before you came to this fabulous country, and the BBC was the place for children to go. You know, you were defined by what you watched as a kid.
Do you mean before we found out about Savile?
Yeah, it was a place for children to go. It was a safe place. But, you know, you would define yourself, do you watch BBC or do you watch ITV? Of course. You know, I was a council estate. I aspired to watch the BBC.
You were posh because you watched the BBC.
This is exactly it. Now, you just don't know what you are.
It is sad. It's a sad decline. And is it sort of an easy win for Sunak then to sort of say a vaguely anti-BBC?
Yeah, I don't. This is what I meant about it being politically divisive and kryptonite, because it's very easy for someone in Rishi Sunak's position to say to the electorate, we don't support this. Now, he knows full well that he's going to have to support it to some degree.
OK, well, should we have a look at the eye then, Lewis?
Well, the eye, this is like a non-story, not a non-story, but it's like really not merely a major story. Tories losing voters to Farage amid anger over high migration. And first of all, Farage isn't running. He's not doing anything, so he's not losing any votes.
That's how powerful he is. He's winning from the jungle. He's eating a kangaroo's testicles and still destroying in the election.
This story does make you wonder if he thinks that he's competing with the jungle.
What is
Rishi?
Who's competing?
Because it's the only place you can vote for Farage is on ITV.
Oh, OK. So maybe that's what they mean.
Rishi needs to get in the jungle or one of these things.
But what this is saying, they had a poll, this BMG research, it said 63% of voters of all parties thinks net migration is currently too high. And people are unhappy with the Tories because the Tories is a part, basically, those people, they're on Team World. They're no different than Labour, really. And the people out there know it. They know that they want, at least some of the people want to be able to vote for a party that stands up for Britain, that cares for, I don't even know why I care. I don't even like this country.
Because you love this country, Lewis.
And it's a huge trend across the world. I mean, we've had Javier Milei in Argentina. We've had Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. We've got Sweden and Denmark and France talking very tough on immigration. It looks like Europe's going to go either quite far to the right or at least very polarised to left and right. We're a little bit behind because we don't have proportional representation and for various reasons. But we've got this kind of thing where Farage can put pressure, as you say, even from the jungle, upon the Tories.
Oh, I haven't said these two words for a few weeks. So I'm going to say them. Overton window. And that's moved. We talk about the far right now, and we'll talk about it probably for the rest of our career at GB News. But it isn't where it was. And populism's now been smeared in some way. So populism in the sense that it's now far right to be popular in some way because the things that are popular happen to be sovereignty and a level of nationalism. Not nationalism as they'd have you believe in The Guardian, but a level of nationalism where you are proud, like we would have been as late as the 1990s. Remember those, Nick? You definitely remember them. Yeah. We would have been proud to be part of Britain, whereas now that's populism and racist.
Yes, I know. It is a bit silly. But where does Farage come in? Is it going to be just putting pressure on the Tories, or is it going to be what I've said? He comes in, becomes Tory leader, wins in 2029, wins the whole election, wins Starmer destroys the country?
Well, I'd be worried if I was Rishi Sunak. Not worried because he can beat, by he I mean Farage, can beat Sunak in the next election. But what he can do after the next election is entirely destroy the remnants of the parliamentary Tory party, which is in power now, which a lot of people who would normally vote Conservative do not agree with in any way, shape or form. And it opens the door, it creates a vacuum, and guess who's going to fill it?
Yeah, well, speaking of that, what is on the front cover of The Guardian, Paul?
Starmer, Labour will not turn on spending taps if it wins the election. So, I mean, I'm not sure I believe this. However, what it does mean is there are fears now within the Labour Party that Starmer won't start spending, and the opposite to spending is austerity. So what they're going to... It's almost as if not spending isn't just a Tory thing. It's a thing that has to be done because of the economic situation we all find ourselves in. And it's almost as if the economic situation isn't just central to Britain, it's central to the entire world. So therefore, Keir Starmer is now... And I'm going to leave Lewis to talk about this, but Keir Starmer is now preparing... He's preparing himself for something, isn't he, Lewis?
Yeah, he's preparing himself for victory. And that's what he's thinking. He's thinking... I'm going to win, definitely going to win, and I'm going to say whatever I need to say to get every possible vote, even if I have to say multiple things at multiple times. he wants to win. He thinks he's going to win, but he also, it's not enough to win by a little. I tell you something, I love Keir Starmer. I've changed my mind.
Is
I know
his
I shouldn't
hair?
say it.
Must be his hair.
I know he looks great. He's a very handsome man. He's a manly man. I mean,
no, did you see him punch that punch bag when he was boxing? It was so bad.
Oh, was it bad?
It was terrible.
Don't
watch
take it away.
and come back to me.
Oh,
on
okay.
that.
We'll take a break while I watch the thing. But he is.
Handsome.
He's handsome.
But he's preparing himself for leadership.
The centralised death of love.
Yeah, he's preparing himself for leadership. And that means, you know what? He's going to be like a Margaret. We're going to talk about this later, I guess, with Margaret Thatcher. He's going to be one of those characters who just says, this is the rules, this is what we're doing. I don't care if you like it or not.
I mean, that's crazy. He's nothing like Thatcher. He's the most wishy-washy, bland guy. Like you said, he'll say anything. He'll say he likes Thatcher.
Yeah.
He'll say there'll be no spending, then there'll be loads of spending. It's all nonsense.
So the great thing about Thatcher is a sentence that gets said quite a lot on this channel, but said rarely, I guess, is that you could go back over years and years and years and years and see that she said something then and it didn't change then, and it didn't change and it didn't change. Whereas with Keir Starmer, he said something last week which he will differ on this week.
Yeah.
I mean, he supported Corbyn. And would have happily had him in 2017 and 2019 as our leader. And now he denounces anything Corbyn's ever done.
I know, and now he's a Thatcherite. I mean, as Peter Hitchens said, he's just trying to not drop the Ming vase. That's his whole job before the election.
Yeah.
But he is giving it a good go. Let's have a quick...
Can I just agree with you and change my mind? I was wrong. I was wrong.
Thank you, Lewis. First time Lewis has agreed with me. Let's have a quick look at the Star then, Lewis. Big story.
A big story, brr, yourself for an ice rink Monday. What does that mean, an ice rink Monday? Ice Rink Monday means like tomorrow is going to be called, I don't know, Escape Britain, biggest snow bomb in 2 years. I mean, that's looking back historically really far, is 2 years. The truth is, I don't want to ever talk about weather with British people. They know nothing about weather.
I can almost feel like ancestry within me.
Yeah, because you're so used to it, you've been lying to yourself. This country has climate.
So I've been lying to myself.
Yeah, you've been lying
I'm
to
12 stone.
Hang on.
I'm a regular gym goer.
Paul's been lying to himself about weather. Is that your position?
Because that's what British people do. They think that they're totally obsessed with the weather. They don't even know about jet streams. They don't know how the distance... You know what? This is a long, large country, and there's snow peaks where it gets cold. Yeah.
Well, look, Cumbria has been stuck in... My people in Cumbria, 2,500 people without electricity. My mum and dad have not been at their roads shut. It's been massive in Cumbria. So I feel like you've vaguely insulted my people in some way.
That's not the weather.
That's the climate.
The incompetence of the government.
How dare you?
The thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, no. I agree with that last bit. You suddenly switched it at the end. I thought you were going to attack my people, but you attacked the government.
Isn't it?
I think we've got to go, unfortunately. Do you have anything brilliant on that?
No, it's just... I mean, 2 years is not a long time. But it is in climate alarmism, so alarmism? There you go. I don't know what that is.
And I've been trying to figure out the pun in Ice Rink Monday, but I don't think there is one.
No.
That is it for part one, but coming up, why Keir Starmer loves Margaret Thatcher, as discussed, and why fossil fuels are fine after all. See you in 2 minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Cox and Schaefer sounds like the dodgiest legal firm ever, I've just realised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to it.
Sounds like a painful procedure.
Yeah, good point. Should we do the Telegraph and this Keir Starmer? Why not?
Yeah.
It's been that kind of show. I've just been called Nick Dixon with an H. That's my German alter ego, apparently popped up on the screen. So why not talk about Keir Starmer and his unlikely new hero, Lewis?
Well, he did praise her. Starmer hit by Labour backlash after praising Thatcher. He said that she affected meaningful change and setting loose our natural entrepreneurism. This is what he said about Baroness Thatcher, which you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to say anything good about Thatcher if you're left. It's like saying nice things about Hitler. You can't say he was well-dressed and smelled right. It doesn't matter. You just can't.
Smelled right. Just smelled right.
And he loved dogs. You can't say. And he said something nice. And that's why I think the guy, he's getting cocky. He thinks he's going to be. He thinks he's going to win. And he wants to win so big. So he's willing to say anything to anybody. Right. And here's the most important salient point about this dude, is that the reason he likes Margaret Thatcher, because among a select group of people who've been prime minister, he's the dream person to be prime minister. He would like to be like Margaret Thatcher, who could do what she wanted to, didn't care about the backbenchers or the 1921 committee, whatever those people are.
1922.
1922. Surprised I know.
I'm just here for basic fact-checking now. That's all I do. Well, that's in with an occasional fact.
This is my point, and you can argue.
I didn't get the point. He wants to be seen in the echelon of great leaders who can do what they wanted.
No, he thinks himself as prime minister.
Already.
Says, already. And if you were going to be prime minister, who would you want to be? Would you want to be Liz Truss prime minister?
Right.
Or would you want to be...
Yes, because he did actually praise Blair as well. I mean, he said Thatcher sought to drag Britain out of its stupor by setting loose our natural entrepreneurialism. Fair enough. Tony Blair reimagined the stale, outdated Labour Party into one that could seize the optimism of the late 90s. So it's not quite as sensationalist when you see that he's just praising a series of people. And Blair himself praised Thatcher in 2013. So maybe it's not that radical. But I'm wondering, Paul, what the tactic is, because he presumably sees the rift in the Tory party between the Thatcherite side and what's sometimes called the NatCon side, who are more economic nationalists, they're less libertarian, they want more state intervention, they're more socially conservative, but presumably the Red Wall...
The Lib Dems.
Yeah, the Lib Dems versus the NatCons, but presumably the Red Wall's not going to be thrilled with this, and Rosie Duffield was sort of confirming that today on GB. They're not going to like this, but is he just gauging that he can gain more from the Lib Dem side of the Tories than he can from the Red Wall? Or does he think he's got the Red Wall in the bag?
So, I thought it was quite astute of Starmer. And then I thought, well, crikey, he's thinking for himself. And then I thought, no, of course he's not thinking for himself. His mentor is Tony Blair.
Blair, that's what I thought.
So straight away,
I'm like... praise for Blair
he may,
came from Blair.
What's the opposition chancellor? What's her name?
Oh, what's it, Rachel?
Yeah, she'll be affecting some sort of Gordon Brown mouth movement before we know it. So we've got Blair and Gordon Brown re-manifest in the 21st century. This This, of course, we should be able to mention, no matter what colour you are, you should be able to mention Thatcher. Thatcher wasn't just, she's not Voldemort for a start, and she wasn't just a leader for leaders within Great Britain. She was a leader for leaders across the world. Irrespective of her local policies, she was the first woman leader to really win a war since some Roman empress. And he is right to lean on that because of the reasons that you said, because it will be divisive within the Tory party. I don't think the Red Wall are going to worry too much about this because Margaret Thatcher would have voted for Brexit, the Red Wall voted for Brexit. The reason the Red Wall turned blue is because of Brexit. He has to play the line right, and I think invoking Thatcher's probably a good thing for him to do.
Well, like you say, he's probably checked it with Blair, but I find it a bit odd. But he also says he's going to be tough on immigration, which I don't believe. Nope. I mean, he says if you believe that Britain needs stability, order, security, then Labour is the party for you. Really?
Nope.
There anyone believe that?
There isn't a party available for a successful Britain.
The last big person to win a war was Queen Elizabeth I.
Wow.
All right. We'll fact check that in the break. I
always believe whatever Lewis says.
Yes, so do I. Let's do the Independent. And Rishi Sunak is set to give Rwanda $15 million to take some migrants off our hands. Paul, this reminds me of when Lewis was staying on my couch and I gave you 150 quid to take him away.
That's not true. No.
There's no way he would move anywhere for 150 quid. Rishi Sunak to give Rwanda £15 million in bid to seal new asylum deal. Wow. Let's lift the cover slightly on this, but before we do, let's give this some context. So the money will be on top of 140 million that's already been given away to this Rwanda project, and it's going to be used, this £15 million, according to the Sunday Times, which is what the Independent quote here, will be used to pay for extra personnel to improve and expand the Rwandan asylum process system. So first things first, this is of course a failed project at the moment. Failed because it's illegal, not failed because of any other reason. But I also don't believe the Tory party as it stands under Rishi Sunak right now, A, want to deliver this, and B, can deliver this. This is the sort of thing that maybe Nigel Farage could deliver if he had a party in power. But it's not the sort of thing that Rishi Sunak could deliver. It is the sort of thing that Suella Braverman could have delivered, but now, of course, she's had to go back to Fareham and lick her wounds and wait to see what the future holds for her. We shouldn't be spending this. We might as well just say at this point, well, they shouldn't be telling us that's what they're going to do. This whole thing is bad optics. You might as well just say, we've burnt £15 million in the garden of number 10. What do you think of that? Because that's essentially what's happened here. Because I see no way of Rishi Sunak being able to deliver this. Now, I think third-party asylum is a good idea. But I just don't see him being able to do it.
So, yeah, a lot of people aren't convinced by this. Sounds like Paul's not. I mean, you'll stop apparently 4,000 people. People are saying that's not a deterrent, it's not worth it. Some people want to do it, but I don't know. What do you think, Lewis? Is it a gimmick?
I think it's a gimmick. I think the whole thing's a gimmick. I don't think that Britain, as a country, is prepared to do the dirty work to prevent people from coming into the country. And if you don't have a border force, which does bad things to people.
60-odd% of people who would vote believe that we've got a net migration way too high. This solves that problem.
I love how you just sort of instinctively just finished Lewis's sentence there, as if you were like a married couple.
I know.
It seemed like you were instructing, but he didn't seem that bothered either.
No, I wasn't instructing. I was just helping him out.
He sort of stopped mid-sentence, and you just naturally came.
No, I was happy because what I'm thinking is so wrong, is so evil,
bad.
Is so bad, is so undoable. The people out there know what needs to be done. It's not going to be done if you can't do it. If you can't defend your own house, somebody's not coming into your house against your thing. You should be able to do something to maybe fart on them or burp on them or have your wife talk to them. Just do.
See, this is
why
I finish your sentences.
In America, it's simple. Someone comes into your house, you have a huge array of firearms to deal with them, and that's how it works. And then in this country, you go to prison. Yeah. If you have to keep a shotgun in a shed 2 miles away.
If whilst they were burgling your house, they tripped over a loose cable, you would go to prison and be sued.
So it's an American attitude. Anyway, should we do The Guardian? And the president of COP28 says there's no science behind the demand to phase out fossil fuels. I mean, it's hard not to find that somewhat amusing, Lewis. He's the head of the COP28 this year, and he's just going, nah.
It is. It's a COP22 president says there's no science. But did you read the story? Or do I have to? I guess you're doing the stories for me, which is good. This is the guy, Sultan Al-Jaber, or Algebra, maybe.
Maybe there's a pun joke in there.
Yeah, there's a pun joke. He's good at math, whatever. And he says the climate thing is because he's at the United Arab Emirates and
Centre TAF.
And it's all...
This is the new cenotaph. Remember when you were struggling with cenotaph for a week?
Oh,
yeah.
United Arab Emirates.
United Arab Emirates. And their job is to... They make money by digging up for oil. Sure, they got Dubai, but basically, they're oil producers. And they don't want to give up the oil. And I don't want them to give up the oil. Oil is what makes Louis Schaefer warm in his ex-council flat in Peckham. Nunhead/Nunhead. And
that's one of
most
the main...
people are worried about being doxed, but Lewis invites them all over.
People don't think that's one of the main uses of oil, is to keep Louis Schaefer warm. No one talks about that.
It is. You know, we've had a huge growth of population, and people are happier and healthier, and they look great because of petrochemicals. And it's not a nick. It's not fossil fuels.
Okay.
The fuels, the whole universe is filled with petrochemicals.
Okay.
The moon of Saturn. Velikovsky. The moon of Titan, a tiny little moon which surrounds Saturn, has more petrochemicals, more hydrocarbons than all of the Earth does.
Well, I think this story just circles Saturn, but let me just bring it back for a second, because he makes a little bit of a point, this guy, and it's a strange thing to be saying in a way, but he, like that we're pro the Saudi Arabia, but he does say, look, fossil fuels have allowed sustainable economic development. He's saying, I'm not going to get into anything that's alarmist, whereas they're saying, oh, he's a climate denier. They're not using very temperate language, and he actually sounds relatively sensible. That said, he is also chief executive of ADNOC, oil company, and it's a bit of a conflict of interest.
But those two things can be right at the same time. I mean, I think net zero is a bit of a fallacy. Quite clearly, it's a suicide mission. If you were to actually achieve net zero in the time frame that they wanted us to, at least two of us wouldn't be here, because it would kill off about 2/3 of the human population on Earth. And some would argue that that's perhaps the idea, but I don't believe that. I just think it's stupid, and there's a bunch of useful idiots that are jumping on board with it. And it's used to scare the vulnerable. It's used to scare the people that will worry about this, and it keeps the middle class kids in England busy, doesn't it?
All right, well, let's bang another story out before the break. The Telegraph and Harry and Meghan could be stripped of their royal titles. I'll be honest, I sort of thought they already had been, Paul. I wasn't really following. I'm like, does anyone care anymore?
No, well, clearly we're not watching this channel enough during the day. But Duke and Duchess of Sussex could, easy for me to say, could be stripped of royal titles under MP's bill. So I'm not sure this is going to be happening at all. But Bob Seeley, the famous Bob Seeley, the Conservative MP, has said the House of Commons should strip or consider the nuclear option of denying the couple their Duke and Duchess standing amid royal racism row. And that's what this story's about. This story's about the racism row and the fact that they've remained silent on it. They've quite happily allowed this rumour to permeate and have their family chucked under the bus because they don't care.
OK, very briefly, Lewis, anything on this?
Yeah, a lot on it. Number one is...
We don't have time for a lot.
OK, but the royal family is not racist. They don't care about the colour of somebody's skin. They just care about... They just care about who's going to provide the strawberries and the scones for their afternoon tea. They don't care what people look like.
Scone-gate. Yeah. Finally, or scone, as we say where I'm from. OK, interesting. Didn't see that point coming. That is part two, smashed. But coming up, Liz Truss is back. Andrew Tate is in trouble yet again. And white-on-white racism. That last one isn't a story. It's just how I'll be treating Paul. See you in a minute.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Acquire, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get back into it with the Metro. And we've been told constantly that racism against white people isn't really racism, but turns out it is if it's done by other white people, Lewis.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. This is another one of those most ridiculous things. It's the Metro, so that's really not really a newspaper anyway. And so, yes, white on white racism exists. Race isn't unique to color. Well, what is it then? If it's not, that's supposed to be color. It's not supposed to be, if it's religion, it's something else. If it's BO, it's something else. Anyway, they say basically it's possible to hate somebody of your own kind who looks just like you, and that be racism. And that's, of course, 100% bull.
Do you know what? I thought that, and firstly, it comes from a reader from the Metro. So not only is it the Metro, which is a joke paper, it's come from one of their readers. It's just ridiculous.
It's from their comment section.
It's mental that we're covering it. But let's go for it anyway. I mean, I thought this was going to be nonsense, right? But actually, he's saying that Eastern Europeans have told him they hate the Irish and they hate travellers and stuff. So there is a point there that you can... That actually is true, that one part of it. What do you think?
Yeah, it feels like we've been snookered in some way, because guys like you and I have been arguing that you can be whitist. Oh my God, what's happened to me tonight? I've not had a drink, I promise. You know, there can be white racism, and you can be racist towards white people. And of course, you know, because of somebody with a username within the comment section of a Metro story has started to agree with us, it's kind of being used against us in some way. This, for me, is like some sort of 3D chess where the race baiters are now able to say, of course you can be racist against white people if you're white, and therefore it basically just perpetuates this whole racism debate, which, by the way, I'm a free speech advocate, not an absolutist, but I'm willing to give it up if they ban the word racism and the word and racialism in total. If you can't use that anymore, we are going to have proper debates, because no longer do we have proper debates, because as soon as someone gets to a point where they're making a good point, someone will just shout, "You're racist," and everyone goes, "Oh, he might be."
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing I've noticed, it's not quite related to this story, it's semi-related, is people are actually getting sick of that anti-white racism. Elon Musk has spoken out against it. Tucker Carlson has spoken out against it so strongly, actually, that Steve Bannon was trying to tone him down the other day in the interview. And so people are actually getting sick of it. And with things that are happening across Europe and in Ireland and so on, people are getting a bit sick of this demonising of white people. I think people are finally having enough. But that's a slightly different point to this story, which is kind of a bit
Yeah, but we had to give this story a point.
Yes, I think we've covered it now. Let's do the Express. And Liz Truss is setting out a new anti-woke bill to challenge Rishi Sunak. Now, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think she has real leadership potential, Paul.
Yeah, one of my favourite Prime Ministers, actually. She's going to be a great pub quiz question for the people of 2137. Liz Truss to challenge Rishi Sunak with anti-woke bill in bid to unite the Tory right. So this is former Prime Minister, they have to put that in the story in case we forget, is to table a private member's bill this week, which would protect women-only spaces by law and prevent people born as biological males from entering them. Wow. I mean, imagine that. I welcome this. I think it's gamesmanship or gameswomanship from Liz Truss, because I think, you know, she's using this as a way to attack Rishi because she knows it's going to make him uncomfortable in some way. However, Rishi could just checkmate her straight away by going, yes, it's a great idea, let's put it into action. And if this sort of thing was to put into action, we would see the start of the end of the culture war. Because as soon as you start to agree on this stuff, it unravels absolutely everything else.
2 points. One, it sounded like you said Rishi Sunak, and I think he would consider changing
I may have done.
He would consider changing his name to get elected. He's tried everything else. And secondly, this has been seen as an attempt to unite the right against Sunak by Truss, and she certainly has the motivation, Lewis. She's been scorned and beaten, and sort of in quite a slimy way by Sunak, so now she's trying to take him out, probably.
Well, whatever the reason is, somebody needs to stand up. I mean, the trans issue is basically a home team issue. I don't know why it's included in the home team. Basically because it's about self-identity, which the team world is saying you can be whatever you want to be, just don't be English. Just don't be British. Make sure...
You say it's a home team issue, but Starmer is now having to deal with it as well, isn't he? I mean, isn't he to win votes? Don't Labour have to at least admit what a woman is as well?
Yes, they do. And the problem is...
What did you mean by home team issue?
Home team issue is things that affect Britain and the English people and white people and people who are living in Ireland who care about Ireland. And the same thing with Margaret Thatcher. She was gung-ho home team. She wasn't none of this team world stuff. Like I said, she'd vote for Brexit. And that's where the battle line. You're talking about a culture war, like it's kind of airy-fairy. It's not airy-fairy. It's a war where the people who believe in England and the family and the home of England are fighting the globalists.
That's true, but the trans issue is global.
The trans issue is a global issue, and the reason it is because it's saying you can be whatever you want to be.
I don't think it is global. I don't think it's a big problem.
The US has had...
well, what I mean is, it's Western global.
Oh, yeah, Western then.
I mean, I don't think in Saudi Arabia it's a big...
You don't mean...
No, I've never corrected Nick Dixon in my life, and I didn't mean to.
I mean, it's across the Western world, It's not a domestic issue.
It's a World Economic Forum issue. That's what I mean by team world. I'm not saying it affects Chinese or Egypt. It's part of this agenda, which is to break down families, which is to stop people from having children, which is to provide sort of a happiness that comes outside of love of country.
OK, well, that last part is actually true. So let's do the Times, and apparently the far right are the biggest threat to Ireland. And if you haven't heard, far right now means you're opposed to being... people stabbing children, essentially, Leo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is another one. Every one of these, you hate to say it, every one of these stories are this way. Far right now a bigger threat to dissidents. Gardaí say. Gardaí is the made-up word that the Irish people have for police, which is ironic because what the Irish people are saying is anybody who disagrees with the state, anybody who disagrees with multiculturalism, is an enemy of the state and of the people. And they're being lumped. Once upon a time, those people in Ireland were called Irish. Then they became white people. Right? Now they're called far-right people. Can you see how they're losing
What's
their
next,
identity?
Lewis? What's next?
What's next is they're going to be called Nazis. This is how these people go.
Yeah, I mean, it has been shocking. I mean, we saw this person who was basically... They tried to deport them 20 years ago, this Algerian person. Then there was on benefits, essentially, for 2 decades. And then they stabbed some children. You wouldn't think this would be someone we should really defend. But Sky News came out blaming the far right. People like John Simpson at the BBC were sort of worried about them, seemed far more worried about the response to it than the actual stabbing. And then what we saw was them attempting to censor people and to investigate Conor McGregor for hate speech, for complaining about it, which is so insane. And you just wonder, what are they trying to achieve with this? Now this claim that the far right are the biggest threat, I find it ludicrous, but what are they trying... They must believe so much in their Team World project, to quote Lewis, in the utopian idea of the sort of liberal vision of globalism. Because why else, Paul, would it be worth allowing children to be stabbed and demonising your own people, calling them far right and censoring them? What is the goal behind all this?
Well, you said you were rusty earlier. You are not rusty. That was a brilliant point, Nick. And I agree totally with it. I mean, for a group of people, the reason they've snookered themselves, they paint themselves into a corner with these type of things because they can't talk about the real issue. They can't talk about Muslims stabbing children. They are unable to talk about that. Mr. Simpson is unable to talk about that. It would be in his contract that he can't talk about that. He doesn't personally know how to talk about that, so he has to focus on the other thing in the argument, which just happens to be a bunch of very angry people who are angry because there was a Muslim person stabbing children. And this is what it's come down to now. For a bunch of people who are so obsessed with gender fluidity, they boil all their arguments down to binary choices. And the choice here is, do we support people who are angry or object to religious terrorism, or do we support the religious terrorists? And if that's the choice, I'm going for the former because I'm not happy about the latter.
Yeah, I should probably say we don't actually know what's in John Simpson's contract, but I know what you mean. It's the BBC taking a strange stance on it. And last little wrinkle I noticed on this is that the Irish are a distinct group, a distinct people, and they're an oppressed people when pitted against the English. But notice when they're in turmoil because someone's come in and stabbed their children, suddenly
they're lumped.
Yeah, they're not a people anymore.
They can't be
they're Nazis, they're white people.
Yeah, it's appalling. All right, we agree. Let's do the I, and it seems Saudi Arabia isn't a feminist paradise I was led to believe. Paul.
Can you imagine, Nick? Can you imagine? In constant danger, in inverted commas, the women fleeing oppression in Saudi Arabia for the West. Obviously, with Saudi Arabia set to host the 2034 World Cup, which is the context for this, women reveal the reality of living under the guardianship system. Now, the guardianship system takes itself from the Quran, and the Quran states that under guardianship, men are the protectors and maintainers of women because women are weaker than men. So far, we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it creates, we don't all agree on that, but one thing it does do is create this system in which women are oppressed in these countries. And therefore, because they have now got access to Western media. And you know what? In times gone by, when they were able to see how free women were in the West, and that wasn't true in Iran, of course, because pre-1979 women lived like women do in the West now to some degree. And they're able to see this now. They're seeing they can have a better life under Western values.
Yeah, well, I mean, patriarchy just literally means rule by fathers, pretty much. Yeah. But it can go too far sometimes, Lewis. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't want to admit this, but I'm living under the guardianship of Paul.
Right. And is he quite oppressive?
I know.
Look at this under the table.
Is he the Saudi Arabia of guardians?
I need protection.
Okay.
So maybe there's
Okay.
What Lewis means is, no.
I didn't see that point coming, but it did allow him to sidestep the issue and not get in trouble. So, all right, well, we nailed that story. It's sort of. That is part 3 in the bag. But coming up in the final section, deep fake porn and unexploded bombs. See you in a minute.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Let's kick off with this story about deepfake porn. Paul, what is it? And more importantly, how'd you delete it?
I don't know. Maybe Lewis can help us. The unstoppable rise of deepfake porn. Experts reveal explosion, but interesting choice of words, in AI sites and apps that stitch faces on anyone with photos online onto naked bodies as victims tell of their horror after police say there is nothing they can do. So, of course, this is harrowing stuff, particularly for the young women involved. However, if it was me involved, I'd be double pleased. Yeah. Extra lad points involved in this. If you want to out there, put my face onto a well-hung gentleman surrounded by absolutely beautiful naked women, I'm all for it. What do you make of this, Lewis?
Well, what I make of it...
Hang on, are you the host, Paul? Let's all calm down. Let's do that again.
I don't know what
Wait.
Sorry.
Wait. What do you make of this, Lewis?
Thank you, Paul, for asking that question. People don't know that. Maybe they should make Paul
wants to be host, and he's starting now.
I don't know what happened
in the final section, he's gone crazy. He doesn't. This is a coup. It's an attempt to unseat me. I've been off for a week. I've got sloppy, and he's unseating me.
And you know what? You're not going to win any friends over here.
No, exactly. They're all against me.
The thing that I'm concerned about is it basically makes everybody distrust everything. You don't know what to believe. Like, people actually think in my calendar that this image of me is AI generated or photoshopped.
But that is you. I took it. Yeah, that's. By the way, that's the best link you've ever done to the calendar. That was actually relevant. That's actually okay.
The first relevant link.
You can go to lewisschafer.co.uk and buy the calendar.
I'd say over the top.
lewisschafer.co.uk.
Weekly Skeptic Live, December 11th. Carry on. All right, that's all you had was the calendar thing. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we could probably move on if you want.
AI, let's face it, it's so boring, really.
Well, yeah, some of those AIs though, they do look disturbingly realistic.
We should, because I made a joke, but we should at this point point out that for the young women involved in this could be
that's horrible.
The end of their career, their social life, their family life, until they can prove otherwise. Because of course most people haven't twigged that AI is so impressively good that they'll believe what they see.
Yes, people are dumb. They'll believe it, and it can be devastating for people. Good point. Let's do the Daily Mail now with another story about why everything bad in the world is due to Andrew Tate, Lewis.
Yes, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Girl pupils at risk after alarming rise in toxic masculinity in schools. And I've heard this seriously because I've got a person that I live with who happens to be a teacher. And so she is saying this, that the kids are constantly mentioning Andrew Tate. And this is an article about how bad Andrew Tate is. And I'm not saying whether Andrew Tate is good or bad, but I think basically this is what kids do. They know it irritates the hell out of the female teachers. It really gets under their skin, which is why they say Andrew Tate. And that's why they say it.
Yeah, but it's so foolish to blame Tate. I mean, they say Tate, whose hateful online rants have earned him millions of followers, especially among teenage boys. If it was all hateful, Paul, why would he have this following? Have all teenage boys suddenly become hateful?
Well, I think this is a serious weakness for the people on that side of the argument. They've completely lost the plot when it comes to Andrew Tate, and it's a huge distraction. They've essentially made this story about Andrew Tate has invented some sort of troubled teenage boy syndrome. That has existed throughout. Time immemorial has existed. But what's happened in this particular time is that there's this huge vacuum because we've told young boys, we've told them that they are bad. Any form of masculinity is bad. And therefore, all of those head figures that would have filled that gap with goodness, like maybe Jordan Peterson, and I would argue that he is somebody who would fit well into that space. You've got Andrew Tate come in now, and we're going to continually tell boys, and I worry for this generation of boys when they become men, because they wouldn't have had the correct role models. And you, as a young boy, as I'm not any longer, but was once, you do need strong, masculine role models. And it's not toxic to be masculine.
Yeah. And the whole culture's been so anti-male, it was bound to happen. The backlash has begun. But we've got to move on. And let's do The Sun now. And a fertility doctor who secretly used his own sperm to impregnate clients. Now, for some purists, he crossed an ethical line there, Lewis.
Some purists. And sicko,
so funny
he's
now.
called the sicko fertility doctor, used his sperm to impregnate my mom. I've got 102 siblings. This should be quotation marks.
Yeah, not your mom, we have to clarify.
Not my mom, but there could be thousands more. This is in Holland, but every year there's a story of this in some place. There was one here where one of our presenter hosts' father was one of these kind of evil. Okay, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, you called his father evil. It's a bit strange. Yeah.
No, it's the sperm
They're going to work out from one of our hosts, and there's hardly any, so people can...
Sorry, it's not
wasn't
you.
me.
It's not you. Anyway, should I have done that? Was that inappropriate?
I think, no, it's out there. He's done a whole show about it.
It's out there. He's in a film, so this is common.
It's live TV.
This is common. But the story is, why does the guy do it? Why does the doctor do it? The doctor does it because it's way cheaper for him to do what he needs to do in a little cup, rather than spending all the money to call somebody to come in and say, hey, would you do... We got somebody here who needs a little help.
He's created this weird kind of Aryan race of these endless sort of Dutch blonde people. But people, ask the question of why. Was it because he wanted his own bloodline? Was it just money? Apparently, it started off he was helping them out because there wasn't a donor. The donor didn't show up. But then he kind of quickly became a monster.
Because he realised there was money involved.
Yes,
it's
money.
saving.
What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, greed. It's greed, isn't it? It's not healthy because, you know, goodness only knows who you could be marrying up with if there are so many half-siblings out there. You could end up with someone like Geert Wilders.
OK, well, let's squeeze in this one in The Guardian. And the female crusade to destroy the last remaining male space, Paul.
Yes, indeed. Most Garrick Club members favour admitting women, poll reveals. I bet it's an anonymous poll, that's for sure. Because what's amazing about this is it's the last standing of any male clubs, only clubs in London in particular. And, of course, these are all male members who are quite happy to join this club knowing that. And it's been in place for 100 years or more. Now, what's happened is the only thing that's changed well, nothing has actually changed, because in 2015 they took a vote and 50.5% of the men of this all-male club said they'd be in favour for women joining, which, you know, is a shocking statistic.
Sellouts.
And then what's happened 8 years later is 51%, so 0.5%. So just one of the naysayers has passed away and the statistics have gone up. Of course, the only thing that's brought this about is because there's been a change to a law saying that if it was to happen now, you wouldn't be able to do this. You wouldn't be able to exclude women.
Lewis, 20 seconds on this.
20 seconds on this. It just shows how interesting men are to women. It's been said that men are the most interesting things in a woman's life.
Wow. I was thinking, can Lewis make this story more misogynist? But he managed it.
Incredible
All right,
stuff.
that was a great show. Thank you very much. Good to be back. The show's pretty much over. Let's have a quick look at Monday's front pages. So, the Daily Mail has PM warns BBC over biggest licence fee increase for 40 years. There it is. Well, that's not it, but that's one of them. The Eye has Tories losing voters to Farage amid anger over high immigration, which is on the screen there. The Guardian has Starmer. Labour will not turn on spending taps if it wins election. The Mirror has Thatcher backlash hits Starmer. The Metro, show us the money. And the Daily Star has Skate Britain, biggest snow bomb for 2 years. That is it for tonight's show. Thanks to Paul and Lewis. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with me and some other people. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, it's good night and God bless.
Good night.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest weather update from GB News. I'm Ellie Glazier. It's been a very cloudy and damp day for much of England and Wales today, but drier and brighter across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Low pressure sits out towards the southwest, slowly moving its way towards us through this evening and into the start of the new working week, bringing with it some very strong winds and some heavy rainfall as well overnight tonight. This rainfall turning to snow across the hills of Wales, parts of northern England as well, seeing some snowfall building up into the early hours of Monday morning, but a much milder night across the southwest. Drier, colder across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, perhaps as low as -6 or -8 into the start of Monday. So a dry, crisp but bright start across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Snow showers pushing in along those eastern coasts, perhaps bringing some icy stretches through Monday morning. And rainfall totals across the southwest, bringing some travel disruption during the morning rush hour. Rain continues across much of the southern half of the UK, with some snow across the highlands of the Pennines and parts of North Wales as well. A mild day across the southwest, maybe 8 to 10 degrees, but still feeling cold despite the sunshine across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Tuesday starts another cloudy and damp day for much of England and Wales. Some snow showers across the Pennines again, but rain, sleet and hill snow gradually clearing its way towards the southeast as we go into Tuesday afternoon, with some brighter spells developing in the west. Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing the best of the sunshine, but continuing to stay cold and sunny for all of us on Wednesday, before further wet and windy weather arrives on Thursday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Free Speech Nation is coming up in just a moment, but first, our headlines tonight. And our top story. Police have confirmed a death in freezing conditions after the body of a man was found in a car in Nottingham. Describing the incident as tragic, they say they're investigating the circumstances, but are not treating it, as suspicious. Well, meanwhile, around 2,500 people in Cumbria could be without power until late tonight after heavy snow. Electricity Northwest saying that repairs are continuing following significant damage to the network, with engineers battling treacherous conditions. Weather warnings for snow and ice remain in place for many parts of the United Kingdom. A British-owned cargo vessel has reportedly been hit by at least 2 drones while in the Red Sea near Yemen. The Pentagon says it's also aware of reports regarding attacks on an American warship in the area. Yemeni Houthis saying that they've been targeting 2 Israeli vessels. In the US, 4 people, including 2 children, have been killed following a stabbing at a home in New York. 2 police officers were also attacked before shooting the suspect, said to be a family member, dead. Patrick Hendry is president of the NYC Police Benevolent Association.
This scene was chaos, multiple victims, a house on fire, and a madman on a rampage, on a mission. And thankful that these police officers showed up. Imagine what could have happened if these police officers weren't there. This madman tried to kill, after he killed others, a New York City police officer. The skill that this police officer had, shooting and stopping the threat after he was being stabbed.
Well, back here, tributes are being paid to Baroness Kinnock, who died in the early hours of this morning. The family of the former minister, MEP, and wife of ex-Labour leader Lord Kinnock says she was a proud democratic socialist who campaigned for justice and against poverty all her life. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2017. Sir Keir Starmer described her as a true fighter for the Labour Party. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown said she stood up against all injustices.
Wherever there was an injustice, wherever there was poverty and inequality, wherever women and girls were being denied the basic rights, there was Glenys standing up for them, bravely, courageously, but popular for doing so. Her loss is a great loss to both the Labour Party, but also to those people who stand up for justice right across the world.
Well, Israel continues to carry out intense airstrikes in southern Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry saying that 7 Palestinians were killed and several others injured during a raid on Rafah city. The US is calling on Israel to avoid further harm to civilians. And finally, commuters have faced a second day of travel chaos as train drivers staged their second day of strikes. ASLEF union members have launched a series of walkouts in their dispute over pay. Great Northern, Thameslink and Avanti West Coast trains have been cancelled. Chiltern Railways and West Midlands Railway services have also been affected. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Now let's get straight to Free Speech Nation.
Keir Starmer comes out as a fan of Margaret Thatcher. The BBC is accused of being too white. And a little boy gets in trouble for cultural appropriation. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. This is the show where we take a look at culture, current affairs and politics. And of course, we'll have the latest from those lovable culture warriors. They won't let the festive season stop them from trying to cancel everything. Coming up on the show tonight, we'll be hearing from the author of an important new book about how the wealthy and powerful can use their riches and the courts to stifle free speech. We'll be speaking to a campaigner about his concerns regarding the provision of education in Welsh schools. And we'll be discussing the cuts to the BBC's Newsnight show and whether there's a worrying decline of programmes of that nature. And of course, I've got a wonderful panel here to answer questions from our studio audience. My panel this evening are the comedians Cressida Wetton and Francis Foster. Welcome both. Has it been a good week for you?
No.
No, OK. Well, I'm glad you came along. I was actually in Spain a couple of days ago. The food is terrible there for vegetarians. Do you know this?
No, I didn't.
They don't really believe in vegetarianism. I ordered a dish which had no meat, and they put prawns in.
Good.
They just put prawns in. What's
prawns
going on?
aren't sentient, therefore they can't feel pain, therefore they're correct for you to be able to eat
I think
them.
it's absolutely outrageous.
No, I think you're treated as you deserve to be treated.
OK, fair enough. Yeah. No, this is what I have to put up from him. Unbelievable. Well, hopefully our audience are a bit nicer than our panel, so let's get some questions. Our first question is from Armin. Armin, hello.
Good evening. Is Keir Starmer a fan of Margaret Thatcher?
Well, you tell me. This was quite a surprise. So the idea is that we think Keir Starmer is trying to appeal to the right side of his party and to Tory voters by giving credit to Margaret Thatcher. But he can't really mean this, can he, Cressida? What's he doing?
Well, you wouldn't think so, would you? I mean, he's picked the icon of the other side.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I know we say he flip-flops on things, but it is a bit unbelievable. I mean,
I can't pin him down. I don't know what he thinks.
Exactly.
I don't know what he thinks about anything.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with him. He's celebrating that she encouraged entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, but it's like Rishi Sunak coming out in support of Che Guevara or something. Like,
Exactly. It's just, I mean, I can't believe it isn't going to alienate more people that would have previously supported him, that it's going to gain votes. But I guess at this point, he's just so confident that it doesn't really matter.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he's just thinking, I've got this in the bag, I'm just going to say some crazy stuff.
Yeah, he's just having a fun one.
Yeah, he's having a laugh, isn't he?
No, I think it's actually quite smart because...
Really?
Yeah, you've got the Conservative Party who, let's be fair, are many things, but they're not Conservative.
Yeah.
They promise a whole load of things that they simply can't deliver on and will refuse to deliver on. Look at something like illegal immigration. Each one of their Home Office ministers comes out and says something like, we're going to stop the boats, and then there's just more boats. So why can't Keir Starmer identify as liking Margaret Thatcher?
It would kind of make sense to me if he was saying, so look, this was the first female Prime Minister and Labour is all about progressive values. That would kind of make sense to me. But they always they kind of gloss over that, don't they?
Because nobody in Labour knows what a woman is, so how would that make sense?
Well, there's that. No, to be fair, I think Keir Starmer has worked it out.
Has he?
I think he has recently, hasn't he? He's just
Very recently, yeah. And he'll certainly have it pinned down by the time he's Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Is it slightly embarrassing, Cressida, for the Labour Party that, there have been 3 female Tory PMs and no...
Well, it's certainly inconvenient, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe and Keir Starmer isn't going to change things. He's the straightest, whitest, malest person in the world, isn't he, basically?
Look, I think you're being unfair. You're saying, like, they've had 3 Prime Ministers, female Prime Ministers. Look, Maggie, you can argue, but she did, she was necessary.
Yes.
You then had Theresa May, useless. You had Liz Truss. I've had chest infections that have lasted longer than Liz Truss.
God love her, Liz Truss. I feel bad for Liz Truss.
Why can you feel bad for Liz Truss?
Because, she just tried something out with a budget. Look, if Keir Starmer can try something out with, being an idolater of Margaret Thatcher...
Look, I'm sitting here with 2 former teachers who are now Thatcherites. This is extraordinary. Well, you are. You've just said.
Yeah. Anyway, look, let's get another question. We've got one from Amelia. Where's Amelia?
Hi. Are there too many white people at the BBC?
Yeah, it's disgraceful, isn't it? The whiteness of the BBC. This is Nihal Arthanayaka, who's a BBC presenter, criticised what he says, that when he goes into work, he says that it really affects him that all he sees is white people. What do you make of this, Francis?
Well, I had the same experience because I went to a Caribbean restaurant the other day. I was the only white person in there. I then had a breakdown and had to be taken out and sectioned. And I just couldn't handle it. When I came out of the institution, I sent a strongly worded email to Jimmy's Chicken Shop, and I actually said, look, I can't be expected to eat my plantain, rice and peas without having a white person in.
I think that's an absolutely fair point.
Yeah, I mean, it calms me down. Just chills me out.
Why? I've been making this point for a while now, that I think what's happened with the sort of leftist identitarian movement is we've ended up with a hyper-racialised society where people notice race 10 times more than they ever did. It's increased the likelihood of racism, it's increased the propensity of people to make racist statements, and that's why I don't like it. I think the ideal of colourblindness was rather beautiful, that we just don't care.
Yeah,
we don't treat people differently.
Absolutely. And I would argue that it is a racist statement. I mean, fair enough, if he sees himself as a victim and he's suffering, well, I can't argue about that. If he is having mental health issues from white people...
It would be different if the BBC was just staffed by racists. I'd be like, fair enough, yeah, that's not nice. But is that what he's claiming? Is he claiming that all the white people there are...
I don't think he's gone into detail about why this gives him mental health problems. I mean... As a woman working in comedy, one is often the only female.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Work it. Oh, my God, it's a fantastic opportunity, isn't it? It means you're more likely to get booked. I mean, I don't know.
You're not meant to say that. You're meant to say it's really difficult for women in comedy.
Of course, it's very hard for women in comedy. It's very hard for women in comedy because we're not naturally funny. I'm kidding. I'm getting off topic. Christopher Hitchens wrote about it. Anyway, I just think it's a very ungracious thing